Hello everyone, welcome back to our Python programming course. Before we begin today's topic, let's first discuss the homework question from our previous lecture. So let's create a file. So first let's open our folder that is Python tutorials. Now, now let's practice the previous question. So the question was write a program to calculate the factorial of any positive number. Before writing the code, let's first understand what a factorial actually is. Though we have discussed what a factorial is in our previous lectures, still we will revise that concept. So the factorial of a number is the product of all positive integers from 1 up to that number. For example, the factorial of 5 is 1, or let's say 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. So this equals to 120. Similarly, the factorial of 4 is 4 into 3 into 2 into 1, which equals 224. Now let's see how we can solve this problem using a loop. So we'll be writing the program. So let's comment this all. So number is equals to input, enter a positive number. Now factorial is equals to 1, count is equals to 1. Now while count less than is equals to number, the loop will work. So factorial is equals to factorial into count. Then we'll increment the count variable by 1. So count is equals to count plus 1. Now we'll print the factorial. So print the factorial of the number is factorial. So firstly we will run this code and we'll see what is the output. When my input is 5, so the expected output was 120. So yes, we are getting 120. Now we'll run in this code again and we'll give 4. So what is the desired output? So the output should be 24. And yes, the output is 24. So now let's understand this program step by step. First, we ask the user to create a First, we ask the user to enter a positive number. Next, we create a variable called factorial and initialize it with the value 1. You might wonder why we choose 1 instead of 0. The reason is simple. When multiplying numbers, 1 is the multiplicative identity. If we started with 0, every multiplication would remain 0, giving the wrong answer. Then we create another variable called count and initialize it too with 1. Now the while loop starts. As long as count is less than or equal to the entered number, the loop keeps running. So that's the condition. Inside the loop, we multiply the current value of factorial by count. So we are changing the value of factorial by factorial into count. So initially it will store factorial is 1, but it will be changed to 1 into 1. So still it's 1, but it will be changing as the loop runs. After that, we increase the value of count by 1. This one. Now, after the condition becomes false over here, so for example, if my number is 5, let's try run right now. So, factorial is equals to 1, then count is equals to 1. Now, 1 is less than is equals to 5. So first let's take the number as 5. So 1 is less than is equals to 5. This is true. So factorial then stores 1 into 1. Then count increases to 2. So 2 is again less than is equals to 5. So after this condition is checked, factorial is the value of factorial is replaced by 1 into 1 into 1 into 2. Now count becomes 3. Now 3 is again less than is equals to 5. So this condition is true. So again factorial becomes 1 into 1 into 2 into 3. Then the value of count becomes 4. Now this condition is true, so factorial will be replaced by 1 into 1 into 2 into 3 into 4. Now then count will again become 5. Now 5 is less than is equals to 5. This condition is true because 5 is equals to 5. So factorial then becomes 1 into 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 into 5. Then the value of count becomes 6. Now if you check, 6 is less than is equals to 5. This condition becomes false. So the while loop gets an exit, and then the compiler comes to this print statement. Then the final value of factorial becomes 120 in case of 5, and then it gets printed. So the output so the format of output becomes the factorial of the number is. See this? We are using this message by printing it in double quotes inside the print statement. Now notice that the variable factorial keeps storing the result of the previous multiplication. This is a very common programming technique called accumulation, where we keep updating our variable as the loop progresses. I hope most of you attempted this question on your own. Even if you coded slightly different, that's completely fine, as long as it produced the correct result. Now that we have revised loop, let's move on to the today's topic. Let me ask you a simple question. What do your name, your email address, your home address, a WhatsApp message, and a YouTube comment all have in common? They are all made of text. In Python, text is stored using a data type called a string. Today's lecture is all about understanding strings and learning how to work with them effectively. Now that we have discussed the homework question, let's move on to today's topic. In our previous lecture, we learned how to repeat tasks using the while loop. The while loop is very powerful and we will continue using it in many programs. But let me ask you a question. Suppose I simply want to print the numbers from 1 to 10. How would we do that using a while loop? So let's see how we'll do this using the while loop. Though we have done it, but let's write it once again. So while count less than is equals to 10, print count, then count is equals to count plus 1. This program works perfectly, but notice something. Every time we use a while loop, we have to do three things. First, we create a counter variable. Second, we write the condition. Third, we remember to update the counter. If we forget even one of the steps, we might end up with an infinite loop. For simple counting tasks, Python gives us an easier solution. That solution is called the for loop. Now, what is a for loop? A for loop is used when we know how many times we want to repeat a task. Unlike the while loop, we usually don't need to create or update a counter variable ourselves. Python handles that for us. This makes our program shorter, cleaner, and easier to read. Now, let's see the syntax of for loop. So, the syntax goes like for variable in sequence statement. Let's understand the syntax. The keyword for tells Python that we are starting a loop. The variable stores the current value during each iteration. The word in tells Python where the values are coming for. The word in tells Python where the values are coming from. Finally, the sequence provides those values. For now, the sequence will usually come from a function called range, which we will learn next. The range function generates a sequence of numbers. It is the most commonly used with the for loop. So, how do we use it? It's like for I in range 5, print I. So let's see the output. So the output is 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Did you expect it to print up to 5? Many beginners do. But notice that it stops at 4. This is because range 5 generates the numbers 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. It generates 5 numbers starting from 0. The number inside range is not included. Range 5. It means start from 0, continue until 5, but do not include 5. Like this 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we'll see one more thing, like instead of 5 if I write 3, what is the output we are expecting? 0, 1, 2, and 3? No. Let's see, the output is 0, 1, and 2. Now let's do 10 instead of 3. We'll see what happens. So the output should be 0 to 9, and yes, we are getting the desired output. Now pause the video without running the program, predict the output. So if I write 7 instead of 10, now pause for a few seconds, then reveal the answer. You may have noticed that range starts from 0 by default. But what if we want to print the numbers from 1 to 10? For that we use another form of the range function. We need to write it like 1 comma 11. What will this do? Let's see. This prints 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Let's understand what these two numbers mean. Let's understand what these two numbers mean. The first number is the starting value. The second number is the stopping value, but remember it is not included. So range 1, comma 11 means start at 1, stop before 11. That gives us the number 1 through 10. That gives us the number 1 to 10. Now let's keep this program and we'll write the same thing in while loop. So count is equals to 1 while count is less than is equals to 10, print count, then count is equals to count plus 1. Both programs produce exactly the same output, but compare the amount of code. The for loop is shorter. There is no counter variable to initialize, no condition to write, no update statement to remember. For counting tasks like this, the for loop is usually the best choice. Now, a small practice now a list of small practice questions. So print numbers from 1 to 20, then print numbers from 5 to 15, then print numbers from 1 to 50. Now maybe you could do all the three programs using the while loop, but now we have studied the for loop, so you need to complete this 3 questions using the for loop. We will do one of them right now, so we will do the second one, that is print numbers from 5 to 15. So let's write for I in range 5, comma 16, print I. Let's see what's the output. So the output is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15. Now I hope you understand why we have written 5 over here and why we have written 16. But let me explain once more. So 5 is the starting value because we want the first number to be 5. Basically the sequence starts from 5 and 16 represents the stopping value. That means this represents that the compiler need to stop before 16 comes. So it stops at 15 and prints the last considered value, that is 15. So far we have learned two forms of the range function. Range a single number or range a stop, then range start comma stop. But there's one more form that's extremely useful. What if we want to print only even numbers or count backwards or skip numbers? For that we need the step value in range, and that's exactly what we will and explore in the further video. We learned two forms of the range function, range stop, range start comma stop. Both of these are extremely useful, but Python provides one more powerful feature. Suppose I don't want every number. Suppose I only want even numbers, or I want to count backwards, or I want to skip numbers. How can we do that? For this, we use the step value. The third form of the range function is, let me write it over here. So the first one was a range stop, then the second one was range start comma stop. Now the third one is range start comma stop comma step. Now let's understand what each value means. So start, where counting begins. Stop, the value before which counting stops. Step, how much to increase or decrease after every iteration. Let's understand with an example. So for number in range 1 comma 11 comma 2, now print number. Now let's run this program and let's see the output. So the output is 13579. Let's understand what happened. The loop starts from 1. After printing 1, it adds 2. So the next number becomes 3, then 5, then 7, then 9. The next value would be 11. Since the stop value is not included, the loop ends. Before I run the next program, pause for a moment and try to predict the output of the one I am going to write right now. So if I write 2 comma 12, can you predict the output? Now let's execute and see. So the output is 2, 4, 6 and 10. Notice that this time the loop starts from an even number and keeps increasing by 2. As a result, only even numbers are printed. So far we have been moving forward, but can a loop count backwards? Yes, for that we will use a negative step. So let's write for number in range 10 comma 0 and minus 1. So let's see. So the output is 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 and 1. Notice the three values we started at 10, we stop before 0, and each time the value decreases by 1. That's why we use -1. Now let's take one more example, that is for number in range 20, 0, -2. What is the desired output? The output is 20, 18, 16, 14, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4 and 2. So I hope we have understood this. Now let's solve a practical problem. We'll create the multiplication table of any number. So can you write that program with me? So int input, enter a number for I in range 1, 11, print number, comma, into, comma, I, comma, is equals to, comma, number into I. So let's see, if my number is 6, it should print the table of 6. So 6 ones are 6, 6 twos are 12, 3s are 18, 4s are 24, 5s are 30, 6 6 are 36, 6 sevens are 42, 6 8s are 48, 6 9s are 54 and 6 10s are 60. Now compare the program with the one we wrote using the while loop. The logic is exactly the same. The only difference is that the for loop automatically changes the value of y. We don't have to update it ourselves. Now let's do the same program we did it using the while loop. That is sum of first n natural numbers. So n is equals to n, input, enter a number in total is equals to 0 for I in range 1, n plus 1. Total is equals to total plus I. Now I'll print sum is equals to total now we'll see the output. If my number is 5, the output should be 15 and we are getting it right. Now let's understand this with a dry run. Suppose the user enters 5, so n becomes 5. Now initially total is equals to 0. Now iteration 1, what happens? Total becomes 0 plus 1. Why? Because the value of I initially is 1. Now the loop will run till 6. If you see, it is for 1, 6. Isn't this the same thing? For 1, 6. So 1 happens, then 2 will come, then 3, then 4, then 5. Now as we know, the for loop stops just before the stopping value. So the stopping value is 6, so it stops at 5, resulting the final value of total as 15. And the last statement, After the for loop finishes, the final answer is printed. Let's test our understanding. Now, for I in range 5, print I. Can you predict this output? If your answer is 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, let's see. So the output is 0, 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, and 4. So one more question. 5, comma 0, comma minus 1. Now can you predict it? So the output should be 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Yes, we got our desired output. Now one last question, that is 2, comma 11, comma 3. Now can you predict the output? The output is 2, 5, and 8. So 2 comes and then the step is 3. So 2 plus 3 becomes 5. Now 5 plus 3 becomes 8, but 8 plus 3 becomes 11. Now the for loop stops just before the stopping value. So the value is 11. So the previous value, which was stored in I, is 8. So the output is still 8. So far we have learned how to repeat tasks using the for loop and the range function. But what if we need one loop inside another loop? For example, printing patterns or working with rows and columns. For those situations, Python allows us to use nested for loops. We'll explore that in the upcoming lecture. So far, we have learned how to use the for loop along with the range function. We have used it to print numbers, create multiplication tables, and solve mathematical problems. Now let's learn what happens when one loop is placed inside another loop. Let's understand this with a real life example. Imagine you are in a classroom. There are multiple rows of benches. Each row contains multiple students. To visit every student, you first move row by row. Within each row, you move student by student. This is exactly how a nested loop works. The outer loop controls the rows and the inner loop controls the columns. Now, let's understand with a simple example, that is for I in a range 3, and then for j in range 4, then print comma n is equals to 0, and is equals to double apostrophe. Now I'll write print. So let's see what's the output. So we get a pattern. Now let's understand the execution. The the outer loop runs 3 times. Every time the outer loop runs, the inner loop the inner loop runs 4 times. After the inner loop finishes, print moves the cursor to the next line. That's why we get 3 rows and 4 columns. So you can see when for I in range 3, so there are 3 rows 1, 2, and 3. And for j in range 4, there are 4 columns 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, after the first 4 stars are printed, the next 4 stars are printed in the next row. So this is done by the print function. And now what you will ask, what this does? The end is equals to double apostrophe basically adds a space after each asterisk. So if I Don't write this. Let's see what actually happens. Can you see this? What actually happens? The star is printed vertically. Basically, when I write end is equals to space, it prints every star after each star in a same row. Now before I run the next program, can you predict the output of this? Can you tell me what will be the output of this program? So let's see. So 2 rows and 5 columns. So the first one is 2, the second one is 5. So 2 rows and 4 columns. So the first loop handles the rows and the second loop handles the columns. Now let's print numbers instead of stars. So let's do that. For I in range 1 comma 4. Now for j in range 1 comma 4, print j comma end is equals to, then print so I hope you have understood this program. Let's break down this also. So when the first loop runs 1 times, the second loop runs 3 times. So 1, 2 and 3, because 4 is not included and the loop starts from 1. So 1, 2 and 3. Now this runs 3 times and this runs 3 times. So when this runs one when the first loop runs 1 time, then the second loop runs 3 times, and then this loop runs the second time, again this loop will run 3 times. Now when this loop runs the last time, that is the third time, this loop again runs 3 times. So for every iteration of the first loop, the second loop iterates 3 times. Now sometimes we want to stop a loop before it finishes. For that, Python provides the break statement. Now let's see how it is used. So for I in range 1 comma 11, if I is equals to 6, break. Print I. Now let's see what's the output. The output is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. When the value becomes 6, the break statement immediately terminates the loop. The remaining iterations are skipped. Now you ask how this happens. So let's see. So for I in range 1 comma 11. So for the first iteration, the value of I is 1. Now this part, so the if part is inside the for loop. So 1 is checked if 1 is equals to 6. So this condition is false. So break is ignored. So 1 is printed. Now I becomes 2. 2 equals to 6 is again false. So this is also ignored. So 2 is printed. Similarly 3 is printed, 4 is printed, 5 is printed. Now when I becomes a 6, this condition becomes true. Now this is not ignored. Instead, the compiler executes the break statement, and as soon as the break statement is executed, the compiler comes out of the for loop. So the output is still 5 only. Now the continue statement works differently. Instead of ending the loop, it skips only the current iteration. Now if I write continue in case of break, let's see what happens. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now 6 is skipped, 7, 8, 9 and 10. Can you understand the same thing? 1 gets the value of I becomes 1. This condition is false, so 1 is printed. Similarly 2, similarly 3, 4, 5. Till 5 it's printed. Now when the value of I becomes 6 and this condition becomes true, the continue statement is executed. Now the continue statement basically skips that value or skips that particular iteration. So 6 is not printed. Then the value again of I becomes 7. Now this condition is again false. So 7 is printed. Similarly 8, 9, 10. These are printed. Finally, let's look at the pass statement. Sometimes we are writing a program but haven't decided what code should go inside a block yet. Python doesn't allow empty blocks. The pass statement acts as a placeholder. Now let's take one more example, that is for I in range 5. If I is equals to 2, pass print I. Now let's see the output. So the output is 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Notice that that pass doesn't change the program's behavior. It simply tells Python do nothing for now. You'll find it more useful later when writing larger programs. Now let's practice 2 to 3 questions right now. So the first question would be print a rectangle of 4 rows and 5 columns. So this is my first program. So let's write for I in range. So remember, rows are handled by the first loop, so 4. So because there are 4 rows, now columns are handled by the second loop. So for j in range 5. Now let's print star comma end is equals to space, then print. Let's see what's the output. So yes, we get the same thing, 4 rows and 5 columns. So I hope we have understood this. Now we'll move on to the second program. So the second program tells use break to stop printing when the number becomes 8. So let's write this program. So for I in range, let's take the stopping value by the user. So n is equals to int input enter uh, enter the stopping number. Now for I in range 1 comma n, if I is equals to 8, break, else print I. Now let's see, and then we'll break down this program too. Now if I give my number as 10, so it executes till 7 only. But now if I give my number till 4, it executes till 1, 2, 3. Now let's understand why this happens. When my input was 10, that is n is 10, the stopping value here becomes 10, so it should go till 9. But 1, when I becomes 1, this condition is false, so break is ignored, so 1 is printed. Similarly 2 is printed, 3 is printed, 4 is printed, until 7 it is perfectly fine. Now when I becomes 8, this condition becomes true. Therefore the compiler executes this statement, that is break. And when break is executed, the compiler exits from the for loop, and the output of that is till 7 the sequence is printed. Now if I give 4 as the input, that is n is storing 4 or any number less than 8. So for example, if I am storing 7, if I am giving the input as 7, so n is 7, so this loop will actually run till 6. Now this condition can never be true in case of 6, because 1 is always false, 2 is false, 3 is false, 4 is false, 5 is false, and 6 is false, and then the for loop itself ends. So I hope you have understood this. Now I'll move to the third program, that is use continue to skip printing the user input number. Now let's take two inputs. First is the stopping value, so n1 is equals to int input enter the stopping value. Now n2 int input enter the value you want to skip. Now let's do for I in range 1 comma n1, if I is equals to n2, continue. Print I. Let's understand what happens. So we give two inputs. So the first one is the stopping value and the second one is the value you want to skip. So if I give 10 over here, Let's see what happens. And the value I want to skip is 8. So here we can see the value 8 is skipped. Now let's understand what happens. So n1 is the stopping value. So if I give n1 as 10, we know the loop will run for 9 till 9. Now my n2 is 4. So we want to skip the 4. So when 1 is there, this condition is false, therefore 1 is printed. So 2 is printed, likely 3 is printed. But when I becomes 4 and n2 is 4, this condition becomes true. Therefore continue is executed, which skips the value 4. So print is skipped, and then again one iteration happens and I becomes 5. So this condition is false. So 5 is printed, 6 is printed, 7 is printed, 8 is printed, and similarly 9 is printed. So now I hope we have understood this, and this was for today's lecture. Now we will now I'll give you some Python programs as homework. So the first one you need to do is print the following pattern. So this is the pattern you need to print. And the second question is one. The second question is similarly the pattern only. So 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 and 4 2 3 4 and 5. Now the third question is print the multiples of 5 between 1 to 100. Now the last question, print the reverse counting from 20 to 1. So these are the 4 questions you need to practice. Now let's summarize the whole lecture. So what we learned today. So we firstly learned the for loop, the range function, different forms of range function, nested for loops, the break statement, the continue statement, and the pass statement. You now know both looping structures available in Python, while and for. In the next lecture, we'll begin working with one of the most commonly used data types in Python called strings. So excellent work everyone. Loops are one of the most powerful concepts in Python programming because they help us automate repetitive tasks. Practice today's homework without looking at the solutions. The more you write loops yourself, the more comfortable you will become with programming. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next lecture.